Welcome to Reading the Bible Together and to Genesis chapter 34, one of the most unpleasant chapters in all of Genesis, even though chapter 38 gives it a run for its money. We're not there yet, thank goodness, but we do have to deal with today's disappointing and upsetting chapter nonetheless. Now, Jacob and family have settled in Canaan. We're told just at the end of the last chapter that they've purchased a piece of land near Shechem, or Shechem. Shechem is how it's pronounced in Israel, from the ruling tribe of the area, Hamor and his sons. Now, one day, Jacob's only daughter, Dinah, decides to visit some of the women of the area. Tragically, one of Hamor's sons, named Shechem, violates Dinah. And oddly, we are told that despite this violent act of defilement, he falls in love with her and determines to have her as his wife. Nevertheless, Jacob receives Hamor. Jacob's sons are enraged at what happened when they hear the news, but Hamor tries to placate them, offering both a marriage between Hamor and Dinah and complete integration into Canaanite society, including not only residency, but work and trade privileges. Now, Dinah's attacker, Shechem, speaks up as well, saying he'll pay whatever bridal price the family would name. Now, behind all of this is a danger which the text never explicitly addresses. Marriage within the immediate family tribe has been of great importance to the patriarchs. Abraham sent his servant back to the land of his family to find Isaac a wife, if you remember, and on no account was Isaac to leave the promised land to do so. Now, Jacob himself returns to the family homeland of Haran to find a wife again from within the tribe. His brother Esau had married outside the tribe, causing much grief to the family, and now he lives in Edom, outside the boundaries of the promised land. And now the integrity of the covenant is under threat, once again through the possibility of intermarriage and integration into Canaanite society. The distinct existence of the Hebrew people hangs in the balance. The text, however, focuses not on the integrity of the covenant, but the desire for revenge. And not surprisingly, the plan hinges on deceit, the long-standing flaw in Jacob's character, now apparently passed on to his children. The text tells us, the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and his father deceitfully because he had defiled their sister Dinah. So, deceit is underway again. What's the deceit? Well, for a bridal price, the brothers demand that all the men in Hamor's tribe be circumcised. Not a small request. If they agree, and only if they agree, then full integration is possible. Then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters for ourselves, and we will live among you and become one people. But of course, they have absolutely no intention of following through with this deceitful plan. Surprisingly, the plan, we are told, sounded good to Hamor and Shechem. They returned to the city to sell the plan to their tribesmen, and they include this incentive. Will not their livestock, their property, and all their animals be ours? Only let us agree with them, and they will live among us. Perhaps there's some double dealing going on here too. The ancient commentators tell us that the violation of Dinah was just the first act in what was destined to become a hostile elimination of Jacob and his tribe. But that takes us beyond the text. Well, astonishingly, the tribesmen of Shechem agreed to the circumcision plan, and the painful deed is done. While still incapacitated, Dinah's brothers Simeon and Levi take advantage of the situation and attack the city, killing all of the tribesmen in their weakened state, including Hamor and Shechem, and bringing Dinah back home. We aren't told if she had remained willingly or if she had been forced to stay on as a hostage. After this action, the other sons of Jacob follow up by thoroughly looting the town. It's a terrible deed, and Jacob takes the ringleaders, Simeon and Levi, to task. You have brought trouble on me by making me odious to the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. There are practical consequences to this destruction of reputation as well, and you can be sure Jacob knows it. My numbers are few, he says, and if they gather themselves against me and attack me, I shall be destroyed, both I and my household. But Simeon and Levi are unrepentant. They said, should our sister be treated like a whore? Well, there it is. I warned you. What possible lessons can we draw from this story? Well, one is that sexual assault is treated with great seriousness from the very earliest days of the biblical record. In our time, it seems as though there's a newfound seriousness and attention given to sexual exploitation, the Me Too movement being just one example. But here's a story well over 3,000 years old, where we hear that an act of sexual violence is an outrage. Such a thing, we read, ought not to be done. We need to recover that ought not to be done sense of outrage regarding all forms of violence, abuse, and exploitation. Another thing we learn is that the claim of love or affection is no excuse for sexual abuse. It really is astonishing that the text includes this line. When Shem, son of Hamor the Hivite, prince of the region, saw her, he seized her and lay with her by force, and his soul was drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob. He loved the girl and spoke tenderly to her. Well, he didn't act tenderly. Shem's feelings or his claims of love or intimations that maybe Dinah had been too alluring to resist were no excuse for his actions. Neither was his status. Not even a prince of the region could hope to escape retribution for an act of sexual violence against a lowly foreigner. Too often in our society has power been a ticket to unpunished exploitation. They already knew better then. We should know better now. Finally, although I'm sure there is much else to discuss, it's important to note that the actions of Simeon and Levi were not encouraged nor endorsed by Jacob, who condemns their action, not only because it endangers Jacob's own family, but because it destroys the reputation of the whole Israelite clan, making them, the text tells us, a stench to the Canaanites and Perizzites. Remember, the Israelites are intended to be a blessing. This action makes them a curse. Now, Simeon and Levi's actions are not without consequence. Jacob does not forget their actions, no matter how well-intentioned they may have been. While he's on his deathbed and it's time for him to bless his sons, he says this in Genesis chapter 49. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council. Let me not join their assembly. For they have killed men in their anger and hamstrung oxen as they pleased. Cursed be their anger, so fierce, and their fury so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them in Israel. And indeed, this blessing, which was in effect a curse, comes to pass. The tribe of Simeon is ultimately absorbed into the tribe of Judah, and the tribe of Levi, alone among the others, is not granted a portion of the promised land. So, Shechem's sexual violence does not go unpunished, but nor does the bloodthirsty revenge. It's important that sexual violence be met with justice, but that the justice be appropriately rendered. Perhaps it is this story, and sadly others, which prompt the very exacting laws regarding such issues, laws which we read about in Exodus and Leviticus. As well, we will see that the nation of Israel will have ongoing problems with intermarriage, concerns which in the eyes of some threaten national identity to this day. So, if you stuck with me this far today in this chapter, thank you for your patience. As with all of life, some parts are far more difficult than others, and there's often distress and worry and deep unpleasantness to deal with. As much as we wish it were not so, the Bible does not shy away from such times. But may the promises of God, such as we will find in chapter 35, sustain us always. We'll see you then.